After what feels like a lifetime, it's time to take online classes offline in as many as 6 states and 1 union territory. The national capital Delhi schools will be opening its doors for students between class 9 and 12. As per the SOPs that have been laid down by the Delhi Disaster Management Authority, schools will only be allowed to have a maximum of 50% of students in a classroom. Moreover, only vaccinated teaching and non-teaching staff will be allowed to enter the school premises, and consent from parents will be a must for every student. After reopening schools for 9 to 12 students, schools in Uttar Pradesh will open for classes 1 to 5 today. Schools and classes for 9th to 12 students will also open in Tamil Nadu, in Puducherry and in Madhya Pradesh. Schools in Haryana too will be opening for classes 4 and 5.
So, and we were also told that school has demarcated areas. There are specific markings within the school, which so to maintain the social distancing, like this one right here on the floor. And these markings have been done in the playground as well, the common areas as well.
Yes, when you find out that area on the atrium hill, also you find out the marks are there
in the
auditorium. Basically, this atrium parts. The movement of the child is moving from the side. They are used to this boxes.
They're supposed to use
these boxes, and they are supposed to go to the classes. Even the washroom also, when they want to go to the washroom also, in that area also, they are supposed to go with these boxes basically.
The markings.
These markings are there. Okay. And this type of distance they are supposed to maintain of all these things.
So I also want to understand from you, have you put in place a quarantine facility within the school? How is it going to operate? And what will happen if there are any symptoms, if your non-teaching staff, your teaching staff, or the students for that matter start showing some kind of symptoms? What will happen in that case?
First of all, I want to say that our 85% has taken this vaccinated. They are vaccinated. The teaching and non-teaching staff. 15% they had taken the first dose. So most probably within 15 or 20 days, they will cover the second dose also. Number one. Number two, if the child suffers from any fever or something, we are taking from the gate basically. If the child is coming and we find out they have the fever or some cough, so we try to send it immediately. And
so there's a
thermal checking entry point. Second point is the child feels something uncomfortable while attending the class. So we have the separate quarantine room. They move to that room. Nurse will be there, and they will call the parents also.
Okay.
And we take according action as per the COVID guidelines.
Though it is an experimentally we are trying, this is worth doing. Considering the possibility of the spread and the risk, it is the risk is quite negligible at this moment, unless something very catastrophic events taking place. Otherwise, I think it is a safe move. Because this is quite a long time the schools are closed, so it is the right time the government should come forward and take the calculated risk and open the school in an appropriate way. But the strict protocol maintenance should be ensured.
Now, data exclusively accessed by India Today tells us several states have seen a sharp increase in COVID cases among those below 17 years. So should you be worried with schools reopening? We tell you more in this report. Schools are opening again. Classrooms witnessing bustle. And here is some encouraging news. Only 2 states which unlocked classrooms have reasons to worry. Apart from Punjab and Bihar, other states have only a marginal rise in COVID in kids in the last 2 months.
The state of Punjab, where in July there were 6.5% samples that are tested positive below the age of 17 years. In the month of August, there is a rise of about 9.6%, where 16.1% samples have tested positive. This upward trend is also being seen in the state of Bihar, where Bihar recorded 6.2% samples of those below 17 years who were tested positive. And now in August, 11.5% samples of those below 17 years have tested positive, which is a rise of about 5.3%. State of Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, Nagaland, Chhattisgarh have also seen more than 2% rise in cases of those below 17 years testing positive. But there are some states like Jharkhand where schools have partially reopened that have seen a negative trend where there's a decline of about 0.8% in those who have tested positive less than the age of 17 years. So this data clearly shows that where states have reopened schools and children remain unvaccinated are looking at a rise in cases of children being infected with COVID-19.
Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, Nagaland, Chhattisgarh saw only around 2% rise in the positive samples of children. Uttar Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh, Mizoram are showing marginal increase of between 1.5 to 1%, with Haryana only recording a spike of 0.6% infections in children from July to August. Even Kerala, contributing the most to the COVID numbers in India, registered a slight decline in the number of kids with COVID, while Maharashtra, Jammu and Kashmir, West Bengal, Delhi, Telangana, Manipur, which have not resumed schools, also saw fewer children testing positive.
प्रॉब्लम ये है हमारे साथ, हम सब चीज खोलना चाहते हैं, मॉल खोलना चाहते हैं, उसका रिस्क लेना चाहते हैं, थर्सडे फ्राइडे जो इवनिंग बाजार है जिसमें बहुत भीड़ होती है उसको खोलना चाहते हैं, एंड उसको हम साइड करते हैं कि लोगों को कमर्शियल एंगल को साइड करते हैं. बट क्या अभी हमने सोचा है इन बच्चों का क्या नुकसान? अगर कोविड फैलता है मोस्टली स्कूल से नहीं फैलता, ये कम्युनिटी में फैलता है. जो स्कूल है वो उसका रिफ्लेक्शन है, ये हमें अंडरस्टैंड करना पड़ेगा.
Parents, while often allowing kids to venture out in public and even taking vacations with them, are still unsure about return to schools.
The real question is, the data could become a ready reckoner for states that are sitting on the fence to decide whether this seems to be the right time to reopen schools, even as children remain vulnerable and unvaccinated against COVID-19, and even school staff that needs to be vaccinated on priority to contain the spread of infection after schools reopen. With Sanjeev Kumar in New Delhi, this is Milan Sharma for India Today.
And here's a big boost to India's vaccination drive. We've achieved a new milestone in our vaccination drive. 1 crore doses were delivered on Tuesday across states. The first such feat was achieved just a few days ago on August 27th. Over 68% of the total adult population have been vaccinated so far, out of which 50 crore have received a single dose, while nearly 15 crore have got both jabs. Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia, while tweeting about the one-day record vaccination rate, also mentioned that nearly 15 lakh doses are in the pipeline and more than 5.42 crore unutilized COVID vaccine doses are still available with states and union territories to be administered. With the new feat, India is inching closer to achieving the December deadline of vaccinating its entire adult population. Let's move on to some other stories this morning. The BJP National General Secretary C.T. Ravi, who's not new to controversies, has now compared the AIMIM and the SDPI to the Taliban. Asaduddin Owaisi reacted to this, referring to C.T. Ravi as a child, saying he knows nothing about international politics.
MIM कर्नाटक तालिबान का जैसे है, कलबुर्गी में तालिबान नहीं चलेगा.
BJP General Secretary C.T. Ravi, no stranger to controversial, often bizarre remarks. And as the heat builds before civic polls in Karnataka, Ravi is at it again. This time, calling AIMIM chief Asaduddin Owaisi a Taliban.
MIM कर्नाटक तालिबान का जैसे है, मुद्दा एक ही है. तालिबान का मुद्दा, MIM के मुद्दा, SDPI के मुद्दा एक ही है. कलबुर्गी में तालिबान नहीं चलेगा.
Owaisi, who has been relentlessly campaigning for the AIMIM in the local body polls, dismissed the BJP leader's comments.
अच्छा है जी, उसको कुछ नहीं मालूम इंटरनेशनल पॉलिटिक्स के बारे में, क्या है किधर.
Owaisi then went on to taunt the BJP MLA with a dare.
दुनिया में 2 कंट्रीज है जो तालिबान को और सिराजुद्दीन हक्कानी नेटवर्क को बैन नहीं किए. कौन से मालूम आपको? एक इंडिया, एक पाकिस्तान. चलो बैन करो ना. अनलॉफुल एक्टिविटीज प्रिवेंशन एक्ट के टेररिस्ट में क्या बीजेपी तालिबान को टेररिस्ट घोषित करेगी।
The BJP has thrown everything into the fight to oust the Congress control in Kalaburgi. It's a bitter battle that's on for the corporation, with Owaisi joining the contest and fielding 21 candidates. Bureau Report, India Today.
US President Joe Biden has come out to again defend his decision of withdrawing from Afghanistan, saying that withdrawing his troops from Afghanistan to end the 20-year war was the best and the right decision for America. He said that there was no reason to continue in a war that was no longer in the service of the vital national interest of the American people. US President Biden has also warned ISIS Khorasan, and he said very clearly to them, "We aren't done with you yet." Biden also said that 5,500 Americans eventually got out and that arrangements will be made to ensure that the remaining stranded Americans are also brought out if they want to be evacuated.
To those asking for a third decade of war in Afghanistan, I ask, what is the vital national interest? In my view, we only have one: to make sure Afghanistan can never be used again to launch an attack on our homeland. There's nothing low grade or low risk or low cost about any war. It's time to end the war in Afghanistan. As we close 20 years of war and strife and pain and sacrifice, it's time to look to the future, not the past, to a future that's safer, to a future that's more secure, to a future that honors those who served and all those who gave what President Lincoln called their last full measure of devotion.
And more in other news break coming in the last call between US President Joe Biden and his Afghanistan counterpart before the Taliban seized control of the country, the leaders discussed military aid, political strategy and also messaging tactics. But neither Biden nor Ashraf Ghani appeared aware or prepared for the immediate danger of the entire country falling to Taliban. This is a transcript that was reviewed by Reuters, has explained how the two leaders spoke for roughly 14 minutes on July 23rd. Biden, in that final phone call to Ashraf Ghani, said that you've the best military, and Biden also urged Ghani to fix withdrawal perception, the optics behind the withdrawal of troops, in his last conversation. Geeta Mohan, a Foreign Affairs editor, is joining us with more details on this. Geeta, good morning. This phone call that's now come out perhaps establishes what experts have been saying time and again, that perhaps the United States didn't expect that the Taliban would progress so fast. And it's clear that the US president was worried also about the kind of optics that would be played.
Absolutely. The fact that there has been a misassessment, miscalculation screams right in everybody's faces, and it is not a hidden fact anymore that the United States of America got the in Afghanistan absolutely wrong. The statements that we see of President Biden last evening speaks and shows of a man frustrated with no answers. It was a decision that was taken in haste, and while President Biden tried to argue that that this is the only way to go, his explanation to the decisions taken by his administration were rather weak and nimble. So there is a lot of questions. There is a lot of answering that the U.S. administration really has to do. But the conversations clearly show that the U.S. did not have a handle on the situation, did not have the right assessment on Afghanistan. And the ones who are going to suffer are primarily those who are left behind in Afghanistan. Akshata, forget about their own people. The Americans have not kept their promise to their Afghan friends who helped them through the 20 years of war. So there is of answering that needs to do in terms of those who are going to lose their lives or are losing their lives in Afghanistan.
All right, Geeta, thank you for joining us with all those details. This last phone call and the transcript of it between Biden and Ghani has in fact led to a lot more questions about the United States, about the troop withdrawal, the optics and what really the world leaders were concerned about, even as the Taliban was inching closer to Kabul. A massive political storm has erupted over the revamp of Jallianwala Bagh. The government, the opposition, they're engaged in a fierce face-off over the memorial revamp. Congress MP Rahul Gandhi sit out at the centre over the recent renovations. Rahul called the revamp an insult to martyrs. Here's a look at all the reactions that have come in.
April 13th, 1919. A monstrous, sinister day. General Dyer marched with his troops through this narrow passageway in Amritsar and massacred a gathering of over 1,000 Indians, peacefully celebrating Baisakhi. No one could escape. Dyer and his men blocked this only exit, this narrow alley. Over 100 years on, the Jallianwala Bagh has been a constant reminder of our blood that was made to flow like water. Many additions were made to commemorate this memorial. Renovations were done, but what was kept to its true form, untouched, as real as it was on the 13th April 1919, was this bullet-riddled wall and this passageway, this alley. For those of us who have walked through this alley, that deathly spine-chilling feeling of helplessness, a writ on these walls. But now, the history recorded by these walls have been given a fresh coat of paint. This passageway, after 100 years, has now been renovated. New shiny floors paved over the grey-beaten path. The fading pink walls are now tinged over with gold and murals. A brand new shiny gallery without a trace of the old alley. The renovation was done last year, overseen by the Ministry of Culture, by the then Minister Prahlad Patel. The renovated look was unveiled on the 28th August of this year in a sound and light show. Before and after photos of this lane were then shared by historian Kim Warner, who has chronicled the 10-minute Jallianwala Bagh massacre. He called the revamp a bid to erase history, or the Disneyfication of Indian history. The shiny new revamp has many outraged. A complete break from our past, our roots, our tragedies.
उनका समय था, उनको करने का अवसर था, उन्होंने जो नहीं किया वो हम सब कर रहे हैं, जिससे उनको तकलीफ हो रही है। राहुल गांधी लड़े हैं क्या? राहुल गांधी क्यों प्रधानमंत्री बनना चाहते हैं? राहुल गांधी ने कौन सा स्वतंत्रता आंदोलन देखा है? सोनिया गांधी ने कौन सा स्वतंत्रता का आंदोलन में भाग लिया है?
केवल दिखावा करने में ये सरकार विश्वास रखती है, इतिहास को मिटाने में, इतिहास को बदलने में ये सरकार विश्वास रखती है। और यही आपने देखा कि चाहे नेहरू जी हों या हमारी आज़ादी की लड़ाई हो, हर एक चीज़ पर अब ये लिपापोती करके शायद ये कहीं ये भी दिखाना चाहेंगे कि कांग्रेस का आंदोलन नहीं था, बल्कि आरएसएस ने आज़ादी दिलवाई होगी।
What is interesting to note, while Rahul Gandhi criticized the revamp, Punjab Chief Minister Captain Amrinder Singh has supported it.
I don't know what has been removed, लेकिन जो मैंने देखा है उस रात को जब प्राइम मिनिस्टर मैं भी उस रात को बोला था, to me it looked very nice. You know, 100 years, 102 years have passed. 102 years में कहीं टेढ़े आ जाती हैं, कुछ हो जाता है, तो it looks very nice.
Away from the politics, should future generations of this country have been allowed to experience the dark, diabolical event in our history, as true, as real to what it was. Across the world, memorial Holocaust sites are painstakingly preserved to their true form. Be it Auschwitz, or where students were massacred at the Tiananmen Square, preserved as close to what it was. Least people forget. Our future generations will now stare at this instead of knowing what it was. Pink, pale, sinister. recording the death of our people. Bureau Report, India Today.